Welcome to a segment we call The Other Side of the Desk. We have Adam Winge with Peninsula Escrow. We have Adam Winge with Peninsula Escrow. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I got into escrow in 2003, worked with a couple of very interesting and prominent escrow officers, most notably Nadine Pate, who retired from Peninsula Escrow, and I took over her desk and been thriving ever since. I started working in convalescent hospitals, surprisingly, and I got an opportunity to come over to Peninsula and haven't looked back since.
So how can the agents best set expectations with their buyers and sellers?
I think the best way to do it is early. For a seller, as soon as you start taking those listing meetings, let them know who your escrow team is, give them our contact information, get us in touch. Let's meet.
I always say expectations. Talk specifically about some of the problems that you've encountered with sellers.
Sure. For sellers, difficulty in getting upfront costs paid for HOA documents, city reports. Those things have to be done early. They take time. HOAs can take up to 10 days to get us paperwork. Cities can take sometimes 14 to 21 days, depending on how backed up they are.
So when we're sitting and talking to a seller on the initial consultation, we want to talk about the escrow process and talk about these upfront fees that they're going to incur and be ready for them.
Absolutely. HOAs can be anywhere from $500 to $1,700 to get HOA documents. So it's a good idea to let them know that's going to be a cost that they're going to see coming up.
And let's talk about buyers. One of the key things is getting the loan docs notarized and the proper signatures and everything. Mm-hmm. What are some of the expectations we need to set as agents with our buyers?
I think for loan document signing, find out if they're more comfortable meeting at their home or going into the escrow office. We have mobile notaries. We can get them signed up nationwide pretty easily, but it's a lot easier if they can come in, and sometimes it saves them money.
That's great. Is there any, we talked earlier about, credits. So the lender has a problem with large credits. We've seen creative ways of reducing the sales price. Are you seeing a lot of credits from the seller to the buyer in this market?
Yeah, we're seeing credits on, I'd say probably 40% of our deals. They're coming through a lot. The only problem we have with credits is when they're at the last possible moment, and we have to get those approved by lenders and their underwriters. Let us know as early as you can, even if you're just negotiating it, so we're ready for it. Let us know what the final terms are. We draft up the paperwork, get it signed, get it to the lender so they have time to get it approved. Sometimes it takes them 72 hours, sometimes less, but I always plan for worse.
What percent of the time do they actually reduce the sale price rather than receiving a credit for non-recurring closing costs?
That all depends on how big the credit is. If the credit's over $10,000, I'd say most of the time they reduce the sales price a little bit to make it work.
And talk about cancellations. We're starting to see sellers trying to get out of deals because they feel like they undersold the property, or, which is more common, they don't have a place to go and they don't realize what a tight market it is. Are you seeing many cancellations?
I am not seeing as many cancellations as you would expect. I do feel a lot of pressure, especially from a seller to a buyer, to make sure they perform on time, because they do have those backup offers that are really pretty. Sometimes $100,000 over what they're working with now. So they're looking for any excuse to get out of a deal sometimes.
So what's your advice to sellers to avoid this, advice to buyers to avoid the sellers trying to maybe try and get out of a transaction?
Mind your P's and Q's. If your lender asks you for something, get it to them right away. If your escrow needs something signed, get it signed as soon as possible. And if you have questions, ask them right away. Get out ahead of everything and make sure you keep your nose clean. We closed a couple of deals with sellers that were waiting for them to cancel, and everybody ended up happy, but I'm sure the seller would have been happier waiting another 30 days for $100,000.
So as an escrow officer, what are the 3 things you need from an agent to open an escrow?
Well, I would start with the executed contract, most important part of a deal, right?
Right.
Then contact information for all the parties involved: buyers, sellers, TCs, assistants, lenders, and then your preferred providers for title, NHD, and home warranty.
So Adam, why do we need an escrow officer?
Well, I like to think because I like to have a permanent job, but I think the important part is to have a neutral third party that's on everybody's side. We help buffer between emotional situations sometimes. Not everybody wants to sell the family house after, an important family member's passed away. Not everybody's quite ready to buy the property yet either when you have an arguing spouse sometimes. Getting a third party in there can kind of alleviate some of the stress. It also helps to protect everybody because we talk to people, vet their information, verify their background a little bit, make sure there's less fraud involved, and makes it a little bit easier for everyone.
So Adam, wire fraud is a big problem and it's only getting worse. What is wire fraud, and have you experienced wire fraud, and how do you prevent it?
Well, my limited experience with wire fraud is when someone tries to pretend to be your agent or your escrow officer or your title company and change wire instructions in the middle of a transaction. One thing to note is we won't change our instructions. They'll stay the same from the beginning to the end. It's extremely rare that our banking information changes. But personal communication between everybody is the best way to prevent fraud. A phone call or even a personal visit. I prefer to get wire instructions handwritten, but if we do get them electronically via DocuSign or some other way, we make sure to make a phone call and have a conversation with that person before any money leaves our office.
Well, Adam, you are a true expert. Thanks for your knowledge and joining us today, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks.